on the three branches of government. Just a little bit about the minimum requirements to run, and then of course a little bit about their functions and what they do in our government. Because honestly, what do we all really know about three branches of government? The president, of course, he's the head of state, chief of staff, chief executive, chief. You got like 12 chief positions that he got like 12 hats. But minimum requirements: he must be at least 35, naturalized citizen, basically born in America. I know right now there's some conflict of some people running born in Canada.
Right, Rubio.
Yeah, that's Marco Rubio.
Right.
Y'all know who I'm talking about. May or may not have been born in America. We'll see how that turns out. He must be back living in the States for 14 years. So he can't go live somewhere else abroad, but he must be back in the States for 14 years before he's eligible to run. 4-year terms, maximum of 2. That's the 22nd Amendment after FDR ran like 4 times in one. They made an amendment that you can only run for president twice. President's cabinet, for no position. I'll pass around. It's the same thing you're seeing on the screen. It's the president's cabinet, which is inclusive of the vice president and 15 departments within the executive branch that have different functions. Of course, we're all familiar with the Department of Defense, Department of Treasury. That's who pays us, right? And then, of course, there are several others. Right now, as you see, John King is the acting Department of Education Secretary. So until the president nominates a new guy, that's who's sitting in. Again, it's the president's inner circle, his uppermost advisors in the executive branch that he goes to for issues in their respective departments. The Senate. The vice president is the president of the Senate. To run for Senate, you must be at least 30 years old, 9 years a citizen, and live in the state that you plan to run in. So you can't live in Missouri and run for office in Oklahoma. 6-year terms. Every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate goes up for re-election. So they all offset. And there's not a limit on re-elections. They could be lifetime senators as long as they win every 6 years. They can create new laws and committee. Of course, within the Senate, there are different committees, like Veteran Affairs Committee. These are different kind of committees. The Senate also has the sole power to impeach a president. Like if Richard Nixon had not resigned because the whole Watergate scandal, he might have been impeached. And they're more state-oriented. They work for they do what their state wants. More likely their state legislator or what. Like the border states, the senators on the border states are trying to do stuff about the border. That's their main focus. House of Representatives, or sometimes it's called the House. You must be 25, 7 years a citizen, and again, live in the state in which you're trying to run. 2-year terms, no limit on re-elections. As I said before, you can be a congressman for life as long as you win every 2 years. Number of representatives per state dependent on population. They create bills. Basically, they create bills on how to spend the government's money. All the revenue, taxes, all those bills, it comes from the House. And they're more citizen-oriented. They represent their people, their constituents of the district that they are elected. Now, the Supreme Court, probably the one that I knew least about. Of course, it's a lifetime appointment. I know, again, right now there's a situation in the news, if you guys are watching. There's a guy who died. Scalia, thank you. And the Senate's already talking about they'll block whoever gets nominated. Which, hey, it's not right. The president's trying to use his powers that's given to him through the Constitution. And anyway, again, Supreme Court nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and they're the highest court in the land. Any law that's go through the Senate and the House is reviewed by the Supreme Court to make sure it's legal and within the bounds of the Constitution. If you take anything from today, just take from, hey, this is an election year. Know that, hey, if you exercise your right as an American and go out and vote, do so knowing that you know a little bit about the people you're voting for. And do some research, y'all. Do some research. Okay.
Well,